Hi, in this video we're going to create a custom template from scratch. Our previous video showed how to set a reference to the yada yada NuGet server, and we created a console application with the samples. We're going to redo the samples here and then add our own custom to it. So in order to do that, first thing I'm going to do is do a new project. Console application, and I'm going to call it first custom template. Creates our console application, and we're going to go ahead and add a reference to the Bisque samples. I'm going to drop down here to yada yada, over to browse, and add that reference. So that's adding a reference to the samples and Bisque itself. I'm going to give you the license agreements I have to agree to. I accept. Adds the references here. And then it's going to tell us it wants to overwrite programs. Yes, yep, that's fine. And then it's been modified outside the environment. Yep, that's fine. And now we have our application. If we run this, we can type in here VPC, and it's going to go ahead and output whatever templates match that, the template that matched that. If I say RDP, or if I say install, it's going to give me some choices. Oh, I guess there's only one that has the word install in it. But anyways, you get the idea there. We're just entering the class name or partial class name, and it finds a template or templates. Gives us the choices if there is more than one. I'm going to go ahead and close that. Now we'll actually add our first custom template, and we'll call it template 1. Going to go ahead and make this public and say that it inherits from, I'm going to add some using up here, Bisque.CloudFormation using Bisque.ec2.networking. So I'll say that this inherits from template. That's located in this namespace. And then I'm going to override the initialized template. You can put your initialization code in the constructor. This is just a little hook and template method here that allows you to do it in a specific place. I'm going to come over here to Notepad and lay out the goals of what we're going to do here. So it says the first thing we're going to do is create a VPC. So I will say VPC equals this dot add new VPC, and I'm going to give it a name of my VPC. Alright, so now that I have this in here, I'm going to go ahead and run our program again. I'm going to type in template 1, which is the name of our template class, and it's going to write the template out, tell us where it wrote it, and the output where it was put. So basically all the same information, but just a little bit different ways of saying it. So where that is essentially the bin debug of our application. So if I open that in the file folder, bin debug, and I sort by date modified, here's our template file. I drag that in and take a look at it. It has some resources, some parameters, and some metadata. And the resources that it has is the myVPC, which correlates to here, the VPC that we added, and it is of type VPC. So if I copy this full path to my clipboard, and I come over to the CloudFormation interface, I can say create stack, choose file, I'm going to paste that full path in, say open, next, stack name. So I'm just going to call it template 1. And notice that it's created a parameter for us for my VPC CIDR block. It's given it the 10 range, the widest available CIDR block in the 10 range for a VPC. I'm going to leave that, that's fine. And we'll go next. There's some advanced stuff in here you don't really have to worry about. Next. It's going to tell us what it's going to do. It's going to create that stack with that name, create, and boom, away we go. Our first Bisque custom template is running. I look at the events, create in progress, VPC. If I refresh here a couple times, sometimes this happens a little faster than slower, sometimes a little slower and faster. Here we go, we've created our VPC and our stack is complete. We have a create complete up here. So if we come over to resources, we can see here the VPC is ending in 11A, and if I refresh this page, I have 11A here. It doesn't have any internet gateways on it yet. I say your VPCs, shows it here as available as a VPC. So let's move on to that second goal. Our second goal was to add an internet gateway. So we're not going to do a separate resource adding for an internet gateway. It's a common thing to want to put onto a VPC. So it's one of the exposed options. Hit return. There we go. Now we can code again. VPC options. So what that does is that adds a parameter to this method call of VPC options. I say VPC options dot add internet gateway. I leave the logical ID in place. And let's go ahead and run it again. And I'll put in 1. Remember, it works off of partial names. We only have one template in our assembly that has a 1 in it, so it just goes ahead and writes it. It doesn't give us any choices. And if I hit enter to continue and enter to close, when I come back to Visual Studio, it's going to tell me that the template has been modified. Do I want to reload it? Yes. So now if we look at our template, you can see there are some new resources that have been added. We have a resource called Internet Gateway for myVPC and attachment for myVPC. You can see here that these are type Internet Gateway and VPC Gateway attachment. I'm not going to get into the intricacies of these CloudFormation objects. You can look them up yourself if you want, but basically it allows the VPC to have access to the internet. So again, what I'm going to do is copy my template path, copy full path, come back to CloudFormation, say update stack, choose file, paste that full path in there, go to next. We don't have any new parameters yet, But then when we go to the last screen, it's going to show us our change sets, preview your changes. So you can see here that it's going to add the VPC attachment, gateway attachment, and the gateway. Or rather, let's think of it this way, the gateway and then the attachment after that. So we say update. We have an update in progress. It's creating the Internet Gateway. Refresh here a few times. Create complete on the gateway. It's now creating the gateway attachment. Couple more refreshes. Gateway attachment is complete. And our update is complete. Here and here. Alright, so let's take a look at what we have over here in the VPC management now. So remember, we're filtered down to the VPC, my VPC. If we come over here to Internet Gateways, it will show you that we have the Internet Gateway for my VPC. Remember, that's the name of it in the template. Right there. And it is attached. So we've now accomplished our second goal. Okay, so next step, add a subnet. So this is where some of the, besides the options that you've already seen that was made it very quick to add a internet gateway and attach it to the VPC, this is some very Bisque power, power coming up. So we have our VPC, and in order to have a subnet, you have to have a VPC. We're just going to say VPC dot add new subnet. We can set that equal to a variable. I will say it's subnet. You can use a var here, obviously, if you want. And now we have a subnet defined in Bisque. Go ahead and run the template again. This time I'm going to go ahead and put something partial in so you can see the feature in the samples for that. So I'm just going to put in the letter E, which is going to be in a lot of different templates, obviously. And then I'm going to find our template. So here it is, template 1. It gives me a choice of 0. And there's lots of other templates that I could run. So I'll say 0, enter. It's going to create the template again, enter to go back to the main menu, and enter to close. And now when we come back, it's going to tell us again that the template has been modified. We'll say yes. We'll come over here and take a look at it. And now we'll see that we have a subnet added, and it's called subnet. So maybe I don't like the name subnet. That's probably not the best idea. I can come back to my template and give it my first subnet logical ID. Run it again. And we're just going to enter in 1 or template 1. It's going to output it. OK to close that. OK to close that. Again, it has been modified. We look at our template, and now the subnet is named my first subnet. Now you should be able to see here that the VPC for this subnet has been set to my VPC. Why did that happen? Well, that's because we added it to the VPC. So it injects the VPC to it because the subnet is expecting a VPC, and since it's being added to a VPC, it assumes that that is the VPC you want the subnet attached to. So let's go ahead and run this. I'm going to copy the full path again. Come over to the CloudFormation Manager. Say Update Stack. Choose File. Paste that in. And next. Now, my first subnet has a CIDR block as well, and this has been set to a default that falls within this range. So it's okay, we're going to let it go. Next. Next. It's going to compute the changes down here. Should show us our new subnet. That's it. There we go. Kaboom. Okay, I spared you all the refreshes this time. Our update is complete. And we have the subnet created. Starting here, ending here. If we go over to our VPC management console and we go to subnets, remember again we're filtered by that particular VPC. Subnets, we have a subnet here now. Alright, so that goal has now been achieved. So let's get the subnet to route to the gateway. So this subnet right now is just standing out on its own. It doesn't have any route to the internet. We're going to use the same technique that we did with the VPC to add some options to it. I'm going to say comma subnet options, which is again going to give us the ability to set the options here. Subnet options pops up in the IntelliSense. Subnet options dot add route to internet gateway. And we will go ahead and run it again. Type in template 1, and output it, yay, close this out, tells us it's updated, and now we have 3 new resources have been added. A route table, a route to the internet, and an association between these 3 objects. Copy that off to our clipboard. Do an update on CloudFormation. Paste that file name in there. Next. No new parameters to worry about. Next. Next. It's going to compute our changes. Alright, there's those 3 objects I told you were new. It's telling us it's going to add them. Update. Update in progress. Okay, again, I spared you the refreshing of the updates. We have an update complete here. If we look over at resources, you can see that we have the route table, the route, and the subnet association. Come over to our VPC, and we look at the route table. This is cached. I believe if we refresh it, now our route table shows that the destination 0000/0 is routing to the internet gateway. So I think we can consider our route to the internet gateway goal has been achieved. So now our next goal is to add an instance on that subnet. So let's go ahead and do that. Instance. We don't have that on our using bisque.ec2.instances. So now instance resolves. Instance equals subnet.add new instance, and we'll call it my first instance. Run our template. Template 1, output, close, close, and our template has been modified. And there is my first instance. You can see it's a type instance. Notice here that Bisque is smart enough to go ahead and add these depends for you. We have our instance, has some bootstrap configuration sets, files for the updates of bootstrapping, and more files for that. Alright, let's go ahead and copy that full path. Come back over here. Do an update on the stack. Paste it in. Okay, so now we have some new stuff. So my instance requires an AMI ID, an image ID, a size, and a key pair. This will default to your, it'll default to a key pair named default, or perhaps the first key pair in your key pairs. Maybe it'll still be blank. I can't remember for sure. All right, so we need an AMI ID. So I'm going to come into EC2, and then I'm going to pretend like I am launching a new instance. I'm going to find the AMI ID that I want, and I'm going to make it Windows Server 2012 R2 base, and I'm going to copy that to my clipboard and then paste that in. Leave this as nano, that's fine. Next. Next. Alright, it's just adding the instance. I'm going to update. And again, I'm going to spare you all of the refreshes. Alright, our update is complete. And you can see here that the instance was completed. Over in resources, it exists as well. Instance. And then if we click on that, it'll open a new window and show us that instance. Now, we won't be able to connect to it for a couple reasons. We don't have a public IP for it yet, and we don't have the remote desktop port open. So let's go back and get that accomplished now. Alright, so I'm going to move this up here because we're going to accomplish it in this next line. So I'm going to come into the add new, and you guessed it, we have options available for our instance. Now, because instance actually inherits from launch configuration, the options are named launch configuration options, which I don't see in our IntelliSense. Alright, pause that for a second to figure out where those were. They're in auto-scaling because it's a launch configuration. So now that I have this in here, launch configuration options shows up as able to compile. So now launch configuration options dot add elastic IP, and also launch configuration options dot Windows. Telling it as Windows gives it a better ability to do some other things like adding to the domain and having the CFN and net script work correctly. So we've done that, and I'm going to go ahead and stop boring everybody to death and finish this out. We're going to run it one more time. So instance dot deployments. So deployments is like packages, configuration, software installations, things like that. It's kind of a catch-all for all that. I'm going to say add new deployment, and it's going to be remote desktop security group, and I just misspoke. This is supposed to be security groups. So I'm going to add the remote desktop security group, to it, what that's going to do is open up the instance firewall in the security group for port 3389. And we'll run it again. Template 1, close, close. Template has been modified, yes. And let's see here. It's added our elastic IP, dependent on the VPC attachment. It's added a security group. There's that 3389. And let's go ahead and copy that path to our clipboard and run it again. Update stack, choose a file, we've got that file name on our clipboard, open, next. So it's going to present one new parameter in here, which is the RDP access CIDR block. So right now that means it's open to the world. If you wanted to pin it only to your IP address, or perhaps the subnet, if you're on a corporate network, you could go ahead and put that in there. So say, for example, your corporate network was 201.10.21, and then you had 255 addresses. You could come in here and do, I think, 27 or something like that. But we're just going to leave it as 000, so it's open to the world. All right, next. And next, and let's see what type of changes we've made to our template. The things have been added or modified. Okay, so we've added a new security group, an elastic IP address, and we're modifying the instance. And it says that it's going to replace it, and that must be because of one of these two. Can't remember which one is going to cause it, but it's going to replace our instance. At least it says it's going to. It may not. Update, and I'll pause. Alright, we're back here. Remember how I was kind of suspect whether it was going to replace that instance or update it, even though it said it was going to replace it? It didn't. It just updated it. So you can see here it did an update in progress. Otherwise, there would have been a create. And if we go back to our management console, this is the same instance ID, and away we go. So, what else did we get created there? Well, we got that security group there, and the elastic IP. The subnet's already been routed. We did that earlier. So now, if we look at our rules under security group, we can see that we have 3389 open, and we should be able to connect. There it is, asking for credentials. And I don't have the key on here. I don't want to put it in the video anyways, so we can just believe that since this is presenting the challenge response for the credentials, that the RDP is working. So that should be pretty much it on our first template. Thank you very much for watching the video.